All right. Let's get this started. We're getting started, and already Fishing is hitting the super chat button. Thank you, Fishing. And we haven't even got started. I hope I hope by the end of this show tonight you don't feel like, well, maybe I want to take that $5 back. I will make sure that I deliver a high quality show, Fishing, so you do not regret putting in your money before the show has even played. All right. So maybe I'm feeling a little pressure tonight. Okay. All right. It is time for the live show. It is February. What is it today? February 10th, 2021. It seems like I was just at this microphone. In fact, I was just yesterday. We had altered the date and I guess time of the think tank because the Super Bowl was on Sunday. And I wanted to make sure I don't know who the people in the think tank root for or anything. They might have been invited to some parties. I, of course, did not want to get in the way of that. And also I was concerned about computer usage. I live in the Tampa area. Tampa was in the Super Bowl. If you haven't heard, Tampa won. I really don't care one way or the other. But I start having visions of internet being backed up and everybody using up their Wi-Fi and everything. And I thought maybe we might have some bogged down problems. So that's why I moved it to Tuesday, which was yesterday. And it turns out we had some technical issues anyway, but it didn't have anything to do with the program. For some reason, my voice was coming across as being very scratchy and everything, but it was not anything on my end. There was something else going on, but eventually we got it all figured out. Melissa, no, I did not get the cord. Not yet. But I'm just glad to know, Melissa, that yesterday that was not an issue on my side of the production. It was something going on. With the internet. I don't know yesterday. But if you are watching this right now, as I always state when these shows start, if you would please give this video a thumbs up. Please like it on whatever device you are using. That helps us with the YouTube algorithms. Please do that. And then in addition, if you could please become a subscriber, where I think we gained like 200 subscribers over the past few days. So we're up to 11,300 some subscribers on the Unfound channel. And so if you are not yet a subscriber, whether you're watching this live or somewhere down the road, you're watching this particular live show for the first time, please consider subscribing to the channel and hit the little bell button too. So when we upload videos, you will be alerted. And I should tell you that I anticipate, besides, I'm going to be doing a video for this Friday's episode. Certainly need a map for this one. But I also plan on doing an Unfound Now this weekend. And I also plan on doing a couple more maps concerning older episodes of Unfound. So you can anticipate some more videos being uploaded within the next 4 or 5 days. So once again, if you're a subscriber and you get those alerts, you'll know right away when it happens. So there you go. What else is going on? Let's see who's in here before I continue further. Let's see who got in here. Karen was first. And Louise from the UK. Hello, Louise. A little bit. Jill, I got a question from Jill, of course. Paula is sorry she missed out on the think tank. Yeah, it was an interesting one, Paula, as you would probably guess, regarding Jake Latiolais. Hello, Kathy, Concha, Kim, Jasmine. Once again, Fishing. Thank you. You're very generous for the super chat. Maybe I'll mention that right now. If during this show tonight you would like to contribute to Unfound, monetarily contribute, please just go down there. You will see that little gray square with the little $sign under in it. All you have to do is hit that button, and if you have a PayPal account, Venmo or Venmo attached, or your bank account or something, you can contribute to Unfound. And I I just, on a side note, I just got my statement from Google within the last few days as to, I guess a tax report, you would say, regarding the money that was made from the YouTube channel this year. And I don't mind. It's not a very large amount, but it's more than I ever thought would ever be possible when the YouTube channel was started. I'm going to guess somewhere in 2017, maybe. The channel made like $1,300 last year. And as you know, I know they put ads on these videos, but none of those ads have anything to do with, Unfound. No ads played during the episodes or anything else. Any ads that play during any of the videos are things that YouTube is doing. But nobody is I know there's people out there making millions of dollars on the YouTube channels, and I'm perfectly happy with them. Good for them. But that this was just started as kind of a side project to the the episodes for you to get a statement from Google telling you this is your tax responsibility. Hey, what do you know? Who would have thunk? And I know, once again, very small amount compared to a lot of other channels. I really don't care because I really had no expectations going in anyway. But hello, Cherie. And once again, thank you, Fishing. Melissa and Brianna, or Brianna, depends, I guess, where you live. Brianna. Come on, Eileen. Laura. It's snowing where Laura is. It was an absolutely beautiful day today. It was just like sick beautiful today in Clearwater Beach. Crazy. Hello, Kathy. I'm glad the sound is good. I hope it continues, Melissa. Susan Rutherford. You must be new, Rutherford. I think I would remember if a Rutherford ever tuned into the show before. So if you're new, welcome. Delane. Kim, Louise. Who else here? Maureen and Nay. Hey, hi. Nay says, I know how many lives I've missed by the length, or how many Unfound lives I've missed by the length of Ed's hair. Far, far too many. That is one way. It's like sands in an hourglass. Nay, sands in this is what the way the hair is. Sands in an hourglass. That's pretty funny. Nay, Sharon, thank you for once again. Thank you for contributing to the program through Super Chat. You're very generous. Thank you, Sharon. Angela. You're getting in perfect timing. Thanks, Louise. 80 over here. It was pretty nice today. I don't know if it was 80, but it was, don't know. Kim says 19 degrees. Okay. All right, Nay. Thank you. That's a really funny joke. Okay. So some of the things that are going on with me since the last time we talked, I played in a disc golf tournament over in Lakeland. I could drive back and forth. I did not play well. Saturday was okay. Sunday was really a disaster. But the funny thing is, I have a funny disc golf story for you. But the funny thing is, over the last 2 days, yesterday I went over and played doubles. So, you play with a partner. I think most of you know what that means. And we play for money, $5. Everybody puts in $5. And myself and my partner won. Now, granted, my partner, his name is Robert. He's also left-handed like I am. Very good player, much better player than I am. In fact, that tournament, if you remember going back to November, I played in advanced. I finished 20th out of 60 players in advanced back in November. He actually won advanced. So he's a very good player. But he and I, random doubles, was just the way it worked out. He and I were paired up, and we won. Now, granted, we had to go to a playoff, and it took 4 baskets, playing 4 baskets before we finally won because we were all tied up after 18. But he's obviously a better player than I am, but I would like to think that I did my part. I hit a couple putts, kind of got hot late as far as throwing off the tee. So I was happy to contribute it as much as I could. So we won first place there. I forget how much money we won now. Was it $20? $15, $20, $25, somewhere in there? I had the picture up on my private Facebook page, myself and Robert standing there. And then today, my buddy Kevin was holding a doubles get together. Nothing official, but up here at Oldsmar. And it's a course I haven't played since even before they put the cement pads in. So it must be 2017. So I showed up there cold, didn't warm up. I got paired with a different guy, a guy named John, who I had not met before. And we won again. So different course, different partner. I won again. Now, once again, partner kind of carried me. I played well early, did not play very well late in the round, but we ended up winning like by 2 strokes. And so 2 days in a row, I show up for these doubles, and I'm part of the winning twosome. I think yesterday there were there 7 doubles groups, and today there were 6 doubles groups, I think. So I won money twice. Today I won $14. I think yesterday it was, what would that be? 5 times 14, something like that. 5 times, maybe $30, $25, something like that. So 25 yesterday, 14 today. Who would have thunk it? I'm just trying to get out there and play a little bit more, because this past weekend I did not play very well. Now, the funny thing is, and this is, if you're not sure, $30, Cherie, is that what that was in that picture? Thank you, Cherie. $30 yesterday. Thank you. If you're not familiar with the live show, this is how every live show starts out, with me talking about just some things that are going on with me and some funny stories. Now, here's the funny story. On Sunday, I once again, I did not play very well. It was at a park called Lois Park, which is over in Lakeland. I'd only played there once before and went over there. Unfortunately, they had the baskets in different locations, and I didn't play from some of the correct cement pads, and so that didn't help. But I was in a group with guys who were quite a bit younger than I was, quite a bit. In fact, I would say that. I'm 50, and I would say the next oldest guy was 30. Well, one of those guys, and I think it was the oldest of the other 3, his mother walked with our group. She was there to watch her son play. Awesome. Totally fine with it. I think that's spectacular. But, of course, I think the mother was closer to my age than I was to their age. And so I'm not playing very well. And we get to what basket was it? 10, 11, 12. Must have been lucky number 13. And I hit this tree. Like I said, I was not playing well. Hit this tree, went over this cliff, out of bounds. I didn't even get the disc. That disc may still be down there somewhere for all I know. And so I ended up taking like a double bogey, just really ticked off. And so we get to the cement pad for the next one, which would be 14. And the 3 other guys are doing something. And I'm just standing there and I'm moping. I'm feeling very sorry for myself, as I usually do. If I'm not playing well, I really get down on myself. I really, the things that start going on in my head are not pretty. And I'm standing there, and the mother of this other player is standing there. And I just, just being friendly, I say, you know what? It's a beautiful day out here. The sun is out. It's not really that windy. It's this beautiful Florida day, this beautiful landscape, this beautiful park and everything. And here I am playing like crap. I mean, I just can't believe how badly I'm playing. It just so ticked off. I'm just saying this to her, and I'm just saying it with a smile. And you know what she says to me? It's a true story. She said, well, you can't have everything. And I took a long pause, and I was looking. She had sunglasses on, but I was looking right at her sunglasses. I couldn't really meet eye to eye. But I was looking at her, and there was a long pause. And I just looked at her, and I said, that's deep. And she laughed. I laughed. And the funny thing is I actually played kind of well after that. I don't know if it loosened me up or something. I still ended up taking a bogey on one of those baskets, but I had 2 birdies in a row. But it was a pretty funny story. That is a pretty funny story that she said, well, you can't have everything. I guess, yeah, that's deep. So that was what went on in Lakeland this weekend. Just I got to play with my good buddy Kevin, who ran doubles today, and that was fantastic on Saturday. We happened to have shot the same round on Saturday, but he way outshot me on Sunday. So that was good, but it was just I just not I have not kind of had that same feeling in my game that I did at the end of 2020. I played really well September, October, November of 2020, but 2021 has not been good so far. I had a couple really nice rounds, but some really bad ones up and down. So what is some of you saying? Are courses harder as a lefty? Nay asks. You know what? There is certainly, I would say, a righty bias out there, Nay. The people who design these courses are usually right-handed. So I think there is certainly a right-hand bias. Certainly. And I'm not trying to whine about it. I've played well in tournaments. I've won a couple tournaments, even though it's been a while. I've played well. I mean, I didn't play well from like mid 2015 to mid 2020 for, problems up here, concentrating on the course. But, starting August, September, October, I've played well. I'm the one who is left-handed. That's not the designer of the course's fault, but there is certainly a right-hand bias out there. And the other thing is that most people play who are, of course, are right-handed. And so they get to see what other players, right-handed players, are doing, throwing which disc, and that can help them make their own choices. Whereas as a left-hander, you're essentially playing you're the mirror image. So you're playing the course the exact opposite way. And because there aren't many lefties out there, you're pretty much making it up as you go. You don't get to look at another lefty and see what he does and then try to copy it. So there's certainly a bias, righty bias in the game, but I'm the one who's left-handed. So what are you going to do? Cherie does know all, Nay. Cherie does know all. And Cherie does look after me. Carrie says, we cried about weather earlier. I'm not talking about it. 12 degrees. Wow. Snowing in the UK. Nay says, what? Ed, did Ed just say 5-0? Yes, 50 years old. Yes, I'm 50. I don't lie about that. I was born August 1st, 1970. Yep, 50 years old. Louise, do you not play with golf balls? No, we play with discs. They look like Frisbees, but they're very sharp and they fly a lot farther. It's called disc golf, Louise. I don't know how popular of a game it is in England or the United Kingdom, but it is certainly popular in Scandinavian countries and in Germany and Eastern Europe. I don't know how popular, though, it is in the United Kingdom. Frisbees, oh, that's good. Yep, there's some people explaining. Kim says, yeah, that was deep, all right, what she said. Yeah. Louise, all you have to do is look up disc golf on YouTube and you'll see a million videos. It's a spectacular game. I love it. Just wish I was better at it. There's a righty bias everywhere, says a lefty. Yeah. Yes, Melissa. Eileen, are the discs just smaller Frisbees? We ordered some because we're playing next week. Are they smaller in diameter? Yes, but they're actually heavier than a Frisbee you would play with on the beach. Probably a Frisbee on the beach probably weighs, here I go, metric system, about 120 grams or something like that, which is about third of a pound or something like that. Whereas the discs that we play with are usually between 165 and 180 grams, which, is heavier, which means they fight the wind better. And once again, the edges of them, for the most part, are a lot sharper than those very blunt edges of those wider discs that you're just playing with at the beach. Or if you've ever watched Ultimate Frisbee, we don't play with those what they call plates. We don't play with those type of discs. The discs we play with have a smaller diameter, but they're heavier than that. So, yeah. Louis Laura says, it's okay. Louise, I didn't hear about disc golf until talking to Ed. I thought the same thing. Yeah. Sheree says, there's a right-hand bias in everything I know because my son is a lefty, so I see it all the time, everything. And the funny thing is, even though I play disc golf left-handed, I'm actually right-handed. I eat right-handed. I write right-handed. Even when I go to play miniature golf, I play miniature golf right-handed. Baseball, I, of course, threw left-handed, but I batted right-handed. I'm kind of mixed up, but I think everybody knew that anyway. Even coffee mugs are right-handed. That's funny. Laura says, my mom, dad, and son are lefties. Nay says, I look 30. Well, Nay, I've had a couple, I've had some plastic surgery. No, I have not. I would never do that. I would never do that. I don't color my hair. You can see the gray in there and everything. It's just really genetics. Sheree says, it's really interesting to me to see how lefties just adapt so many things we take for granted. Best guitarists are left-handed. So that would be like, I guess Paul McCartney is left-handed. Jimi Hendrix is left-handed. Isn't Tony Iommi from Black Sabbath? Was he left-handed too? I think. Synergy. I do like metal music. I have an Iron Maiden bedspread Synergy. Delane says, I have a lefty daughter, and yeah, most things are designed for righties, but when she played baseball, she did switch hit. That's interesting. Her grandma's ambidextrous. I guess I'm a little bit ambidextrous too. Louise, we don't play it in the UK, just normal golf, I believe, with golf balls and golf clubs on a massive golf course. Yep. That's right, Louise. You have some spectacular golf courses there in the United Kingdom going up into Scotland. I love watching the Open when it's in out there, Louise. I do get up early to watch it. Love it. Kathy says, yeah, Ed, just like Phil Mickelson. That's right. My favorite athlete, Phil Mickelson, although he's not been doing too well. Karen says, shooting righty or left-handed? Right-handed. When I shoot guns, right-handed. Yep. Kathy, Louise, you have the British Open every summer, a major golf tournament. I love it. Yeah. All right. So there's that. So we always love to talk disc golf on this program. To start out, we got a lot to talk about. This show goes 2 hours. We got a lot of time. What else is going on? I finally cleaned out my car. My trunk of my car is mainly filled with disc golf stuff. Discs. I actually have two umbrellas. My cart that I use to carry my bag. A ton of discs in my trunk. Some towels. Some other things. I also have a jack in there in case I ever break down. I have to change a tire. I don't use one of those jacks you get from the factory. I actually have a floor jack in the trunk of my car. Took all that out. Cleaned it all out, took some things out, put every thing back in, needed it. Did that to the driver's compartment too. So it really needed it. It was, I had put that off too long. So I did that. Also cleaned out my disc golf bag after this last tournament this past weekend. And what else is going on? Going back to trivia, I think that, it was maybe a year ago, I would talk about my trivia team being so good. But due to COVID, we haven't been going. But within the last month, my brother and I have been showing up. Of course, while my dad was here, we went, and we actually won. But trivia is becoming a thing again on Thursday evenings. And my brother and I, his wife showed up. My sister-in-law showed up last week as well. But been doing okay, but those last questions have been the final question, like on Jeopardy, they do it that way. have been tough. But still, for a team that's only 2 or 3 people, and some of these other teams have like 8 or 10 people, we've been doing really very well. And so we will be there again tomorrow. So it's good to get back to doing that. And then maybe you saw the picture that I posted last night. If you were friends with me on Facebook, it was so foggy here last night. After I did we did the think tank, I actually went out because I wanted to, my car was almost out of gas, and I knew I was going to be driving over to Oldsmar today to play doubles, and I didn't want to have to worry about getting gas on the way over there. So I got in my car and I went down Gulf Boulevard to the nearest gas station, which was a couple miles south of here. It was so foggy. It was so creepy out. It was so creepy. It really did look like one of my favorite horror movies, The Fog. It looked like that out there. The fog over the water, the fog inland. And I took a picture of it and posted it on my Facebook page. But it was really creepy, and it was kind of neat really thick fog. And so that was kind of cool driving down there and getting gas. Also got a couple of candy bars. And then coming back. So it was kind of neat to do that. Once again, I want to remind all of you that if you are watching this video, please give it the thumbs up. Please like it. Subscribe to the channel. Do not forget to do that as you are watching this evening. And if you're watching this in a replay, I hope you will choose to do it then as well. So those are some of the things that are going on with me. No disc golf tournaments this weekend, although I will be showing up for the club on Sunday morning at Taylor, where I am a member. But then next weekend, I will be going down to North Fort Myers to compete. And that's a place where I played really well last year. So hope I can duplicate that, but you're not supposed to think about expectations on sports because that'll just, tighten you up. So I'm going to try to go be down there with a good attitude. I have some practicing to do, though, because even though I was a part of these winning doubles teams, still was a little wild. Missed a couple putts here and there, but obviously I played well enough just to not bring my partner down, and we managed to win yesterday and today. But I think it was maybe 60% them, 40% me, maybe 65% them, 35% me, somewhere in there. I was surely not the leader on the team. That is for sure. But that's the way teamwork works. Sometimes you're the best, and sometimes your partner is the best. All right. So that's some things that are going on in my life. I also think maybe this Friday I haven't gone. Somebody had asked me, Karen asked me about shooting. I haven't done that in a while. And in fact, I'm planning to go Friday evening, and hopefully I'll get some video of that to post it. Hopefully. So what's everybody? Scotland is beautiful. Ideal cards left-handed, but that's it. Delane says. Kathy, yeah, Delane. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, Delane. Let's move on to some of the topics for tonight's show. I'm going to start where I usually do, where I start talking about the poll in the Unfound discussion group on Facebook. If you're not yet a member, I hope you will become a member there on Facebook. We have about 8,000 members in there. I can remember where there's 62 people in there, like November 2017. It's crazy. But, after every episode, I post a poll there on Saturday mornings, and people get to give their choice on what they think happened in a disappearance. A lot of people choose not to do that, and that's fine. But I still think the number of people that do answer the poll is probably very indicative of the audience as a whole. So for Jake Latiolais, and that is how you pronounce his last name, Latiolais, Latiolais, a large majority of the people in the group decided that Jake did not jump off the bridge. And I think that then means that they believe that foul play was involved, and there was some sort of scam going on, some sort of planning to make it look like Jake jumped off the bridge. Okay, so if you haven't seen that poll, and if you're in the group, you can go check that out. It was overwhelmingly the people decided that he did not jump off the bridge. Now, on the other hand, this is one of those situations that we run upon often. The think tank thought something totally different. Not the whole think tank. I think it broke down to about 66% of people believe that he did jump off the bridge, and 33% said that he did not. Some people believe that it was a conspiracy. I don't want to get into any names, but I'm guessing you can imagine who. But 33% of the people in the think tank, and I think that we had, about 12 people in the think tank yesterday evening. So I would say like 4 people thought that he was murdered, and about 8 people thought that he actually did jump off the bridge. Now, on Patreon, and I'll just give the link out right now, patreon.com/Unfound Podcast. If you would like to become a supporter of the program, and thank you, Cherie. And you can become part of the think tank on Sunday evenings. You get a lot of other things, Unfound on the Ground. I guess you could say a little more access to me maybe than the average listener has, although I do try to get back to every person who ever contacts me who's a listener. You also get a bunch of blogs to read. I've been writing them going back to like August of 2017. But in the blog that I write every week, usually at least 3,000 words that I contribute in expressing my opinions, my analysis of every disappearance, something that I do not do on the episodes because I do not want to push any of you in any particular direction. I want you to listen to the episode of course we had video, watch the videos, and you come to your own conclusions. I have to admit, and I want you to know, this does not affect how I'm going to help Tina, Jake's mother, or anybody else in Jake's family. I will continue to help them as much as I can, but I will tell you that I think my opinion on this disappearance differs from Tina's. I think it was very obvious in the interview with her that she believes that Jake was murdered and it was some sort of conspiracy among a few, if not many people. I sided with the majority of the people in the think tank in thinking that Jake did jump off the bridge. Now, how did I come to that conclusion? You can read that at patreon.com. In general, it's just hard to imagine a bunch of people putting that all together. I realize that 911 calls seem suspicious, and there's a lot of other things, the crutches, how the roommate acted and everything else. But it starts getting so big that you start to question your, how would I put this? You start to question the basis for any of it. It just seems at some point that this would collapse under its own weight, and it doesn't seem it has. And I think what we've also, I also default to the idea that, except for a few surprises we've had, Esther Westenbarger's herself in her car being found in that retention pond, certainly a surprise. Even though during the episode, as a listener messaged me just a few weeks ago, pointing out that, you know what, in that interview that I did with her daughter back then, we did talk about the possibility that our mother drove into a retention pond or some sort of body of water. So at least it was out there. It's still a surprise, but at least it was kind of on our radar as a possibility. So, Crystal Morrison, her remains being found just right down the street from where she was last seen. Kind of a surprise. Certainly a surprise. But all of these other disappearances that have been solved, I don't know if there are really any surprises. Andrea Bowman, not a surprise. Zoe Campos, not a surprise. Austin Pivo may be surprised that it's certain one group and not another group, but I don't think I think most people did think that Austin was murdered. I think we just got the perpetrators wrong. So we just have to remember that even if you look at disappearances that Unfound is not covered, or of course they're solved, so we'd not cover them. These disappearances that go unsolved for a long time and then solved, I don't really know how many of them are surprises. And, you don't hear anything about, this large group of people conspired to make one person disappear. I'm not saying it's never happened, but it's very, very rare. And I think I also think about that in coming to my own personal conclusion. Even so, whatever Tina wants to talk about, I'll talk to her about it. I will continue to be honest with her. But I will continue to be off the record with any discussions that she and I have. But I will continue to be truthful with her and tell her what I think. But if she and I differ on what happened, that's not going to affect it in any. She could be wrong. I could be wrong. If we knew what happened, we could just go solve it right now. But I'll continue to help her in any way I can, even though I for sure know that my opinion and her opinion are different. And that's not uncommon. I often disagree with my guests. Guests have one particular idea. I have another one. That has not affected my relationship with any of them, at least not in my opinion. So that's the conclusion I came to. Maybe that's a surprise to a lot of you that listen to it, but listen to the episode. But it just seems like a conspiracy is so complex that it just defies. If it was a movie where a screenwriter could sit down there and think about it and type it and get rewrites and everything for years before, a camera is even set up, then yeah. But this isn't the movies. This is real life. And usually things usually break down to explanations that are a lot simpler, involving not too many people. So there you go. Thank you for posting that, Sheree. Joyce, if he did go off the bridge, they may never find him. Unfortunately, Joyce, that is true. And hello, Joyce Rivatuzo. How are you tonight? Good to see you in here. That's true. Unfortunately. And, especially since it's the Mississippi River. If somebody were to jump off the Leechburg Bridge into the Kiski River, where I grew up, the body would be found immediately because the Kiski River is only like 2 feet deep. It eventually empties into the Allegheny River, which then becomes the Ohio River. But the Mississippi River, totally different animal. And that's a problem for sure, Joyce. No doubt about it. Nay says that really surprised me in my opinion. Yeah. Nay, Ed is has such empathy for people. I'm just trying to help him out. And I thank you for that, Nay. But I got to be honest with them. I just have to. And sometimes it does cause problems. We get into deep discussions, and I always want to make sure. I even have to tell sometimes the guests behind the scenes, I'm not trying to argue with you. Okay, I'm not going to argue with you. It's not worth it to me. I'm just telling you what I think. We're allowed to disagree. All right, you're allowed to think one thing. I'm allowed to think another thing. I'm not necessarily trying to change your mind. What I'm trying to do is give you my knowledge that I've learned over 200 disappearances and talking to people who have been doing this longer than I have. That's all I'm doing. Okay? That's all I'm doing. In the end, I'm going to help you one way or the other. But I think I have a responsibility to pass on to you the information on my head that I think may be helpful to you. You can totally throw it out. But morally, I think I have to tell you this. That's how I usually handle those situations. And I think that Because many times in our lives, we do get into arguments with people, and it is kind of an ego thing. It is. We all have egos, and certainly I can be as guilty of that as anybody else. I'm human just like everybody else. But with this, it's not like I'm trying to say, I'm right, you're wrong, listen to me. I'm just passing along information from what I've learned. That's all I'm doing. All right. And we're trying to make headway on these disappearances one at a time. And so I don't think that there's any ego in me involved. I'm not offended if people don't change their minds, but it's just about me making sure that these people know everything that they should know. Because what happens is they certainly know more about the disappearance, whether it's Jake's or anybody else's. These family members or friends, they certainly know more about these disappearances than I will ever know. I am not an expert on any particular one disappearance, okay? But what I have in my head is a culmination of all of that information, that has gone up here. And so once again, you start to see theories, you start to see patterns. You can apply something that you heard over here, this case to this case. But what happens is that because they are so concentrated on their disappearance, they don't know what's going on anywhere else. If they're having problems with the police, they think that they are the only family in the history of disappearances that is having problems with the police. Of course, we know that's not true. Most families do. But because I can't tell you how many times this happens. Because they are having problems, they think that some sort of conspiracy. Well, the sheriff must be in it. This police officer must be in it. And sometimes they are, as we've talked about. But most of the time, they're not. And they sometimes bring up to me, I think there's something going on. I think that the suspect has something on the sheriff, and that's why the sheriff or this police officer and this investigator doesn't want to do anything. And I just have to tell them, well, if that's the case, then every investigator on just about every disappearance has ever been done on Unfound. I guess every investigator, is compromised and is being extorted some way, because I hear this all the time. So what do you think? So, and sometimes I think they like hearing it. I don't think these people like thinking that law enforcement or people are conspiring against them. I don't think they like thinking that, but they do because they don't have all this, perspective. And so when I can tell them, you know what, you are suffering from the same issue that 100 other guests on Unfound, and they're happy to hear, oh, okay. I mean, they're happy to hear that they're not being conspired against, but on the other hand, that then turns to, well, why are these people so lazy? Why don't they have, why are they so complacent? Change that. But it's not some conspiracy. Hello, Valerie. So run into that quite a bit. I would never tell you the guests that I've had these conversations with or anything else. That's all off the record, but it happens often. So there you go. Kim, and your opinion should be helpful to the families. It's so easy to get tunnel vision. Well, many of them do. Once again, because they have been living with a disappearance for a long time. And because of that, they're not, and they shouldn't have to, take the time to read about other disappearances and learn about what has gone on in other disappearances, investigations, and everything. They don't do that. So I think one of the roles that I play, that it's up to me, is to tell them what is going on. Louise says, when a person goes missing and police and investigators search areas numerous times and find nothing, then a few days or weeks a body is found in that area has been searched. Body has been put there. Well, Louise, I'm not convinced that the body has been put there, but I'm going to tell you on Monday, I'm going to get to that in a second. I'm going to be talking about this very topic. Thank you for bringing it up. Thank you, Nay. Do you think that the killer moved the body to where it's been searched or missed? Louise, I'm going to say 99.9999% of the time it's been missed. And once again, I'm going to talk about that on Monday. I'll get to that in a moment. Hello, Valerie. So let me just move on to that. And it goes along with this. I'm guessing that I was on 2 different programs this last Friday. Of course, the regular Unfound episode with Jake Latiolais. And then all of you got to watch me and John Lordan interview Jason Landry's father, Kent. And I really had a really great time doing that. Thank you to John for inviting me on there. And, it was, I think it was good teamwork, me reading the press release and John doing all the maps and everything. So I thought that that all came out very well. I think that Kent found it very helpful. And I want you, although I will not read it word for word, he did send myself and John a very nice email afterwards. So it was all good. I hope that all of you got something out of that. I hope, of course, Kent got something out of it. His whole family got something out of it. And it was interesting to do the Unfound now back at the beginning of January. And here you are a month later with John Lordan talking to Jason Landry's father. It's just all interesting how that all came together. Now, being that John released that episode last Friday, I am going to be releasing a special episode this coming Monday. So that would be February 15th. And what it will be I'll just do a small introduction. It's not going to be the regular format of the Friday episodes, but it will be a small introduction at the beginning. And then the audio will play from the interview because John sent me just the audio from the interview we did with Kent. And then afterwards, I'm going to talk a little bit about, of course, I've already done an Unfound now on Jason's disappearance. Of course, there's a lot of new information, but you got to hear that all in the interview. So I'm planning it out, although I've not written it yet, but I'm going to record it this weekend. I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of what Louise is talking about when people go missing and all these searches are done and nothing is found. And later, somewhere down the road, remains are found in the exact area that was searched. You could kind of say that happened in Crystal Morrison's disappearance, although we now know that her remains were on private land that was not searched the first time around or at any time. Whereas we could look at a situation like Eric Pracht. I think I finally got that straight on how his last name is pronounced, Pracht. That's not a disappearance that we got to cover, but John did get to cover his disappearance. He did speak to Eric's family at one point. But you should know, maybe 6 months ago, Eric's mother sent me a text just out of nowhere, just thanking myself for Unfound and what we do here. So, but I don't think I've talked to her since, even though she's not been on the program. It was great to hear from her. But in his disappearance, if you will remember, he was at this party at his place with his fiancée, her sister, and the boyfriend of the fiancée, or maybe they were trying to set the two up. I forget. But Eric and his fiancée go outside to take the garbage out. She comes back. He does not. He never comes back. And many people were very suspicious. Was there foul play? Did the fiancée do something? Did her family do something? What could have happened out there? Did Eric go for a walk and somebody pulled up and pulled him into the car? But we had to remember that Eric was carrying a gun when he took off. But all these searches were done in the area, and nothing was found. No signs of Eric, anything. No clothes, nothing were found. And what is interesting, though, is during my particular talks, I don't know what I know John interviewed them, but his talks behind the scenes with them, I don't, of course, know what those were, but I can tell you in my particular talks with Eric's parents that I told them, I think searches need to be done again. That is one of the things that I told them. I remember it like it was yesterday. Now, I don't know if they did them again because of what I said. I'm not going to say that. I have no idea, but they ended up doing another search sometime later, and Eric's remains in the very same area, and his remains were found. And a gun was found with his remains, and it was decided that he did commit suicide. So how can this happen? Why is it that he was missed the first time around, but not the second time around? And I'm going to talk about that on Monday, because we have the disappearance of Jason Landry. Wrecked his car. You heard the interview, and he just seemingly walked off. And all these searches have been done, and of course his remains have not been found. Why? Or he hasn't turned up alive anywhere either. He still could very well be alive out there, and of course I'm hoping for that. But I do want to talk about why many times, as Louise is saying, why are searches done, nothing is found, and then the next time around, remains are found. And so that is going to be my discussion after Jason, the interview with Jason's father plays on Monday. And I think you'll, believe it or not, I know this is going to sound a little corny and weird, but I'm going to be using an analogy with something that I experienced regarding disc golf. I know this sounds really, really strange right at this point, but it just kind of hit me very recently as to how much there is a similarity between disc golf and throwing disc golf into trees and bushes and not being able to find them, and people walking away, whether it's from a car wreck, their house, their job, wherever, and the remains are not found immediately, but then years later, the remains are found in the same area. So you can look forward to that. This is my own theory. I'm not ripping anybody off. You know I don't rip anybody off. I never do that. So you can look forward to that on Monday. And I think my theory is going to make, of course I'm going to tell you about it because I think it makes sense, but I think it's deep. To quote what I said to that mother this past weekend, it's deep. Let's see here. Valerie says, that was a good show. A lot of Unfound folks were liking and commenting on the video. That's spectacular, Valerie. Thank you. Thank you, Nay. Marlene. Hey, there's Marlene. Marlene, great to see you. The most frequent poster on the Unfound page on Facebook. Marlene. Good to see you, Marlene. Carrie says, Eric's remains were found by random hikers, not search party. That's not how I remember it, Carrie. That is not how I remember it, which is weird. Delane, question, does FBI have jurisdiction over searching private property regardless of... No, we don't. No, Delane. Shree says, Devin Bond. Yep, that's another one. Although I don't know if they actually searched in that particular area, Shree. I know searches were done, but they were done much more up near that school and everything. I don't know if they were done in that area where Devin was eventually found. I'm not as sure on that. Could be. Carrie, another lane, still required permission regardless of agency. Yeah. Tammy, hey, had any update on Chris Turner from Las Vegas? Not that I heard. Not that I've heard, Tammy, unfortunately. That's one of those disappearances that the remains being found, we just may never know. Very sad. Delane says, I think of the young guy found hanging from a tree and not found during initial search. I'm not familiar with that, Delane. Carrie, Eric Proct, it was announced in the presser over him. I will have to check that out. But if that is the case, if that is the situation that it was not a search party but random hikers, I think that even proves my theory more, Carrie, not less. So that'll be interesting. Thank you. That's not how I remember it, but Carrie, you very well could be right, but that's just not how I remember it. Louise, do you think these people were murdered or took their own lives? It just depends, Louise. A lot of these people have things going on, like Crystal Morrison. I think it was a variety of factors that caused her death in those woods, and I don't think it had anything to do with murder or suicide. Thank you, Marlene. Most of the remains are found in a not so surprising area. Most. Cherie is correct. I've been reading about people who went missing in areas searched and never found, but found a few weeks after. Yeah. That's some interesting reading, Louise, you're doing, and I applaud you for that. Carrie, I think he was found within yards off from where they searched. Okay. Yeah, I'm sure before I record this summation for this Monday special episode, I will be looking at that again, Carrie. But so, yes, I enjoyed working with John. I think we made a good team. When I first talked about how there was going to be a collaboration between myself and another host, I did not know that it would take the form that it did. Perfectly fine with it. Totally, I would say it happened kind of quickly, but I'm flexible. And so we'll see if we do that again somewhere down the road. I appreciate John saying all the nice things that he did about Unfound, specifically when, talking about my analysis of the map of Jason and how he was on that road and how it curved around to the spot where his car was wrecked. So maybe we'll do it again sometime. So let's go on. Maybe I'll answer a question now. Jill, once again, vying, VYING, for number one question asker on the live show for 20. I think she certainly got it in 2020. She's going for it again in 2021. She wants to be a repeat champion. So here's the question. Jill, when did Unfound start gaining traction? And that's what I have written in my notes. Maybe I'll go here for the, nope, didn't want to do that. By the way, if you ever see me looking off to my left, I'm looking at my notes that I type up before every Unfound Live. I do not do this off the top of my head. When did you feel that Unfound was gaining traction in the podcast world? Jill, I don't know if I, really think that way. Really, I don't know what gaining traction means. I can't help but notice that there are more people who have liked the Facebook page. I can't help but see that there's more people in the group, even though, once again, I continue to say it, I don't keep track of numbers. I just happen to see them because they're in front of my face. I don't go looking for them. I just happen to see that we have a nice subscription rate for the YouTube channel, but just in contrast, we have like 11,300 subscribers to the Unfound channel. You know how many John Lordan has? About 130,000. So, but his show is a YouTube show, whereas Unfound, of course, is an audio program that eventually makes it onto YouTube. But I don't know if I would put it that way, Jill. I think that I know this is going to sound totally arrogant, but Unfound will gain traction when more people think about missing persons cases the way we do. And, there's there's an attitude out there, not just in anything in life. It's either you adapt to the environment. Once again, if you're going to get hired by a company, you're probably going to have to adapt to the environment that has been set up there. If you want to continue to work for that company, if you want to move up the corporate ladder or whatever, it could be a nonprofit organization, whatever it may be, you will probably have to conform to the environment if you want to move ahead. Whereas there's the other attitude that maybe you can get the environment to change for you. And that is more of the attitude that we have on Unfound. I think that anybody who's listened to this program long enough knows that the missing persons environment is not good. There's a lot of misconceptions. Most police officers, investigators, sheriffs, deputies, even people in the FBI, et cetera, don't understand disappearances. Unfortunately, on top of that, when you just talk about podcasters and true crime, I think too many of them just get into it because they knew that true crime podcasting can be popular, and so they can make themselves popular just by starting a podcast. And so we're not here to adapt to any of those environments. We're here to change the environment. And when I feel like it's been changed, I'll let you know. We got a long way to go. But as I've said many times, I think it starts with a lot of things that, starts with talking to people like Dr. Grace Telesco, hoping sometime when all this COVID stuff goes away, of showing up at schools and talking to criminal justice majors about what really goes on in missing persons investigations, using some of Unfound's episodes as examples of what went right, what went wrong, the mistakes that were made, things like that. That's when I think Unfound will gain traction. Until then, we're just going to do the best that we can do. We're going to cover these disappearances the best we can do. We're going to contact as many people as we can. We're going to continue to reach out to those people, once again, like people in law enforcement, people at schools, people who have been covering missing persons cases, who have been in the environment for a lot longer than we have. And that's how I think this can all eventually change. We're not here to go along to get along. We're here to change things. We're here to point out all of the mistakes that continue to be made. So that would be my answer. So gaining traction, as I've stated many times, I've written about it, I've talked about it. I think like in at least one of the Q&A episodes, which probably another one will be coming up here in a couple months. I do that once a year. What was I going to say? But we're just here to change things. And as I've always stated, I judge the program on how many disappearances I think that we've moved forward. I do not base the success of the program on downloads or anything else. So it's just hard to define gaining traction. And I wish I could remember what I was going to say. Love the collaboration. Tammy says, love the collaboration. Yes. Velveta, you must be new. Welcome. Too many ill-trained or under-trained volunteer searchers. That could be true. That could be true. Louise says a lot of hypothermia took place. These clothes are found, and later these bodies are found after extensive searches of the same area. No injuries or drugs. Yeah, that happens. Ground searches. Yes, Delane. Yep. Kim, I like that Unfound doesn't go in the way of conspiracy theories. We don't do conspiracy theories, Kim. That's just not just with Unfound, but that's just It's a reflection, I think, on me. Louise says, I think people want to help the families of missing as there are not enough police or professional volunteers to search for these missing people. Yeah, I do think some of these missing cases are very strange. Even when you think of everything possible, I do always think that somebody close, family, spouse, friend, knows more than they say. Yeah. All right. So, Jill, I hope that answered your question. I think I have another question down here. Okay, Valerie, I see your question. I'm going to answer it before the night is over. All right, so we're already an hour in, and I got stuff to talk about. Okay, here's something that is a weird quinky dink, otherwise known as, did I just say that? Coincidence? Quinky dink? Cherie and I, a couple days ago, she had brought up to me this book called The Foundling, and it's a story about a guy who was adopted. I hope I get this right. And he was raised thinking that a baby girl and a baby boy were kidnapped after they were born from a hospital. And then years later, this guy, his family thought that he was the kidnapped baby boy. And it turns out that he wasn't. Hello, a little bit. And he wrote a book about this, and it is called The Foundling. And maybe some of you have read it. I know that Cherie, she brought it up to me, and we talked about it. Was it yesterday, Cherie, or the day before? Now, here is like a huge coincidence that you're never going to be able to imagine. This guy's name is Paul Fronczak, Fronczak. Maybe some of you are familiar with his story. That it turns out that the Fronczaks thought that he was their baby boy that had been kidnapped when he was a baby, and it turned out eventually when they checked all the DNA, when that became a thing, that he wasn't. I actually worked with him at Star Trek: The Experience. As soon I was not familiar with the book. I think at some point I was familiar with the story. I don't know if the name exactly registered to me, but when Cherie brought it up to me, I was like, man, why is that name familiar? And so I looked him up, and I was like, I know that guy. I worked with him at Star Trek. Now, technically, we did not work side by side. I was hired in May of 2000. I'm going to guess that he was hired sometime in late 2003, maybe. And he worked exclusively on what we called the Borg side. If you're familiar with Star Trek, the Borg. And I worked on the Klingon side. And at least at the time that I worked there, it was separate. In fact, one of the reasons that I left Star Trek in October of 2004 is because they were going to start cross-training people on the Klingon side to do the Borg side, and I didn't want to do that. And it'd been 4.5 years. It was a great job. It was fun and everything, but it was time for me to move on. Well, Paul worked on the Borg side, and I worked on the Klingon side. I know who he is. I don't think that I ever said two words to him in the time that we worked together. Once again, we didn't technically work together. We were both actors, but we were in totally, separate sides. So it was weird. I mean, what you talk about a coincidence that Cherie brings that up, and it suddenly all comes together. Now, I think, of course, at the time, I don't think he knew that about himself. This would have been, once again, 2003, 2004. And my understanding is he didn't find out about all this additional information about his family and everything until within the last 5 or 7 years or something. So it was so weird. You just never know what you're going to run to. Delane says, I love that book. Yep. I work with that guy. or we worked at the same place at the same time. That's probably clearer. That's probably more honest. So it was just kind of weird. You never know. The thing is, when you work in Las Vegas, you never know who you're going to run into. You just never know. That's just the kind of city it is. I suppose LA is like the same thing, or maybe, New York City is so big that maybe it's not as common there, but in Las Vegas, you just never know who you're going to run into or who's going to be working at the same place that you are and everything else. So, and of course, when you work in entertainment, that makes it even, I guess more likely. Now, at the time, Paul, just an actor at Star Trek, like I was. So, it's just a weird, just so weird. Klingon makes sense for you. Thanks, Jill. Louise, I'm sure there's a film as well. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe there might be a film in the works, Louise. Maybe. Cherie, it's almost an unbelievable story. Still looking for his missing twin sister. It's a small world after all. Cherie says. Louise, Ellen, yes, he took his clothes off on. No, okay. Kim says he would be an interesting interview. That's the same thing Cherie said, Kim. Delane says, Cherie, you are the cheese to my wine. So I have no idea if he even has any idea that I do this program. Of course, way back in 2003, 2004, I could have never guessed. I mean, podcasting wasn't even a thing back then. MySpace was the popular social media site at that time. YouTube was just kind of just starting. It just shows you how long it's been. Oh my God. But I don't know if he knows that I do this program or not. And I didn't know anything about any of this until Cherie told me. And then I looked him up and it's like, oh yeah, that's so weird. But I thought you'd all want to know about that. Let's move on to this. I had a chance to talk to Robbie Hurt's mother within the last week. I think I spoke to her last Thursday, Becky. And so we were talking about, if you will remember, the remains found kind of near where his truck was found. That's a disappearance that we covered September of 2020. And I can't talk about everything that we talked about, but what I think all of you need to know that DNA tests are being done right now. They took DNA, and she said, though, it's going to be a couple more months before the results are out. She did send me a map of where the truck was compared to where the remains were found in relation to, or if you will remember going back to the episode, the interview, she had talked about how these dogs, they went from the truck to this local gas station. Well, the weird thing is that the truck was here. The remains were found in this direction, but the gas station is in the opposite direction. So I think we have to keep that in mind. You know how much I trust dogs regarding disappearances, not much. So I think we have to factor that into, what do we suspect? But she also told me that there are other missing people from that area. And what she did tell me, though, that the remains were found like within yards of the road. They were not deep, way deep into the woods or anything like that. They were found very close to the road, and searches were done at the time. So obviously these remains were missed. If they're Robbie's, they may not be. Remember, just within the last couple months, those remains were found near where Bradley Brooks's car was left in Corpus Christi, Texas. Those remains were not his, and those remains were closer to Brad's car than these remains are to where Robbie's truck was. So we just have to all, remember that. It very well may be that it's Robbie. It's one of those things. Are we supposed to hope they are, or are we supposed to hope they aren't? And this is how families become very conflicted. They want answers. They want to find out what happened. But then you get that call. We found remains near Robbie's truck. And now it's like, well, I don't know if I want, want that to be Robbie or not. So as soon as we hear anything, as soon as I hear anything, I will let you all know. But I wanted to let you know that I did get to talk to his mother once again. I think it was last Thursday, and we had a very good talk about it. And of course, she's, she just doesn't know how to feel. But that is the update on Robbie's disappearance. Like I said, I talked to her a week ago, so that's the beginning of February. So maybe by the end of March, beginning of April, we may have an answer. All I can tell you is that there was nothing with the remains that really indicated with Robbie, like the clothes, or, for example, did he break an arm or something, and you would be able to see the fracture as it healed? Nothing like that. Whereas with Brad's disappearance, Bradley Brooks, I will tell you that his girlfriend Ashley knew very early on that it probably wasn't him, because he had some sort of metal plate in his face, or something had happened at some point. And an investigator had told her, she had asked, well, if it's Brad, then he would have this. And the investigator said no. And so that's why she immediately thought probably not. And she was right. It wasn't Bradley Brooks. So we will just have to wait and be patient for those results. Cherie is telling a story to Delane about cheese. That's funny. Okay. Kim says, I thought of what you said about search dogs when they said the dogs didn't pick up a scent in the Orrin and Orson West disappearance. I continue to say, I guess dogs have to be used. I get why they were used. Dogs certainly are certainly good searching for drugs in cars and on airplanes. They're certainly good for sniffing out bombs, and all. They do have incredible abilities that humans do not. But when it comes to missing persons cases, very, very, very so hit and miss. I think that the public's, once again, Joe asked me about gaining traction. I think one of the ways that Unfound can show that it's gaining traction is the public becomes more and more leery of the ability of dogs. I know that's not going to make any dog trainers feel very good, but they themselves know how many times they've failed. And it's most of the time, but they don't want to talk about that. Because, whereas even with this program, I'll tell you, we've covered almost 200 disappearances. Very few of them are solved. I'll just tell you that. I'll give you the statistics, and that's just the way it is. And I wish it was better. Whereas my perception is that you never hear any dog trainers, handlers say how many times they've failed, how their dogs didn't pick up a scent, that their dogs didn't find a missing person. You just don't hear them talk about that very much. So, Louise says, I would think there would be an awful smell if there was a decomposing body nearby. That's true, Louise. I mean, we've all been out in the woods and smelled something and said, oh, that got to be a dead deer. That got to be a dead raccoon or something like that. Absolutely. But you have to understand, Louise, that smell only lasts for a very short time. There's a specific amount of time where that happens, and then it goes away. Very, very narrow part of time. Louise says, when dogs are used to smell for someone missing and they cannot get a scent, do people have stronger scents than some people do? Do you think? I've seen dogs find people or belongings of people. Well, they do. Louise, I'm not going to say that dogs fail 100% of the time. What I'm saying is they fail most of the time. And, and in fact, I could cite maybe, Robbie Hurt's disappearance. If that turns out to be Robbie's remains, the dog went one way, but his remains were found. Once again, I don't know if they were or not, but the remains that were recently found were in the exact opposite direction. If those end up being Robbie's remains, then how do you explain that? Why are the dogs going one way and his remains are found the other? I can remember, and it was before I started Unfound. There was a woman who went missing in Michigan. It seemed like she was having some sort of mental episode. Something wasn't right with her. She showed up at a hotel looking for somebody, and she was not making any sense. Then she got in her car and took off. And somewhere down the road, on the side of the road, one of her tires was flat or something, and she went missing, and the police show up and dogs show up and they're sniffing all around and everything. And the dogs went down the road a certain way and stopped and sat down or whatever they do. And that led people to believe that this young woman started walking after her tire got punctured and she got picked up by somebody and that person harmed her. I forget this must have been like 2014, 2015, something like that. I'm sure one of you are going to look that up. But what did they end up? What was the result? It turned out that what happened was this woman, being that she was having this mental episode, she got out of her car and there was a lake right there. She jumped over the guardrail, went into the lake and drowned. The dogs never once smelled a scent that directed them in the direction of the lake. And they got there fairly quickly, within a day, couple days. How can that be? How can they say that she walked 100 yards, 200 yards down the road, parallel to the road on the berm of the road, this highway, and there she was right in that lake the whole time? It's sad. I feel very horrible for her family and everything, but these are the kinds of things that I'm talking about. I don't know, and all dogs are pretty much the same, just like humans are. Our sense of smell is pretty much the same. Maybe our eyesight, some people need glasses right away, and I'm here at 50 and I still don't need glasses. Obviously, that's a huge variable there, but it's just like polygraph tests. Dogs are just like that. Maybe they're getting it right, and maybe they're getting it wrong. I always think of the Madeleine McCann case when the dogs were used. I always thought that a body would stink for weeks if it was decomposing. Not so, Louise. Cherie, dogs, polygraphs, and searches. Apparently, yes. They're just tools. It's not DNA. Dogs, polygraphs, searches are not DNA. Dogs, polygraphs, searches are not scientific. Even though the polygraph is a machine, it's not scientific. Kim, I'm an EMT. A body won't usually have a smell for weeks if they're outside in the elements. There you go. Okay. Let me answer another question, and this comes from a former guest, Jolene, the sister of Joe Bain, a disappearance we covered last year. And it's a long question. I kind of condensed it, but I wrote it here. Why can't the missing person's family look at their missing loved one's case that the police have had for over 20 years? This did come up in my interview with Jolene. Even after filing the paperwork, asking to see anything on his case, I was told that I may compromise the case. How can I when they have everything? This is one of those topics in that there is no accepted standard practice. You've heard me say many times that there are some guests who have been Unfound. They have virtually all the paperwork regarding a particular disappearance of their loved one, whether it was within the last few years or 20 years or 40 years, 60 years. There are families out there who have everything. They have maybe the police department has even given it to them. Lots of paperwork, a stack, all this stuff. They have all the phone records. They, of course, have all the social media information. And then there are families who can't get anything. There is no standard practice for this. My perception, I haven't really done a study on this of Unfound's cases, and I would have to go back and check with all of these guests to figure out which ones did have information and ones that don't. My perception is it has a lot to do with the circumstances of the disappearance. First of all, I think that's a major factor. In Joe Bain, once a Boehm, Joe Bain's disappearance, I think the reason could be is there could be foul play. That he was there with those people, and they say that he just walked off. He said, I'm going to be going. I'm not going to be coming back tonight, just to kind of give you the very general facts of that disappearance. And his disappearance is about 20 years old. And of course, he never returned. I don't know how many people believe that. You chose to believe what those people had to say or not. We just don't know. But I think, once again, my perception is that it has to do with the circumstances. It has to do with the kind of police department. It has something to do with who's running the police department. Are they open to the public? Do they have egos? What are all these types of things? It all matters. And the fact is that any information that is collected by the police, they do not have to give to the public. This is why I continue to say that the guests, the families, friends, they have to be more engaged doing things on their own, because if they get the information, then they get to keep it. If the police get the information, then the family's friends are never going to see it. That's just the way it is. And I know that, what the Kessies have done with Jennifer's disappearance over there in Orlando, and, they sued and went to court to get all this information. And still, Jennifer's disappearance, despite being how old now? 15 years old? Older than that? I know it was January of 2006, 2005. It's been a while. Despite having all the information, despite it being one of the most high-profile disappearances in the United States of the 21st century, being covered on multiple news channels multiple times, it's still unsolved. So even when you get the information and you get the publicity and you get a private investigator and everything, the disappearance can still remain unsolved. So sometimes even getting the police information is not helpful. I think that families should try to get it. But I also think that after so many years, whether it's Jennifer's case, which once again is about 15 years old, little Joe Bain's is 20 years old, at some point, the families, they're going to have to make time to do it themselves. And I know that's hard to do. But if they want information and they've filed the request and they've only gotten, one page or nothing, that's probably the way it's going to stay. Probably. And I would never tell any guest of mine to sue the police department for information. I would never tell them to do that. I would, if I knew the Kessies, I've never talked to them, never exchanged an email or anything else with them. I would, if I knew them, I would have said, don't do that. But they did. I think that they're getting horrible advice. So, Jolene, I feel for you. If you're watching this, you know that we've talked many times off the record. Jolene, I think the things that you have done since you were on the program have been fantastic. I think you're going in the right direction. I think it's just going to take some time. I think you should continue to ask for the paperwork. There's nobody that can stop you from doing that. And maybe one of these days, you'll get lucky. That's, really all, I can say at this point, unfortunately. So there's so many factors, I think, that, figure into why a certain group of guests have everything. And then you go to the other extreme and a certain group of guests have nothing. It doesn't seem right, but, that's just the way it is. And I realize, 20 years, we have disappearances that are 30, 40 years old and people, can't get paperwork because the investigation is ongoing and nobody really believes that, but Sometimes maybe we get surprised. Unique Harris's. I don't know if anybody thought anything was going on in that disappearance until they charged with somebody with her murder. I think Valencia knew. I think we now know that she held some things back in the interview. I don't know what I can do about that. But just come out of nowhere. Same way with Zoe Campos. We thought that Carlos Rodriguez was going to get away with it. Turns out he's not going to. So you just never know when things are going to change. So I hope you remember that, Jolene. But I don't have any good answer except to say that different circumstances, different departments, different facts, big city police department versus small police department, state police, sheriff's office. I think it all matters. All right, let's move on to this. Dr. Grace Telesco. February 22nd, which is going to be in a little less than 2 weeks, is going to be a very busy day for Ed Densel. Because it's 7 o'clock, I will be with Dr. Grace Telesco again on her YouTube channel, the Fischler College of Education and School of Criminal Justice. I always have a hard time remembering that. I will be on her show again. She has picked out, she just told me the case that we're going to talk about yesterday. But I will be on her program on YouTube for an hour at 7 p.m. Eastern on Monday, February 22nd. And then at 8:45 that night, for all of you premium Patreon members, once again, patreon.com/Unfound Podcast. We will be doing another Unfound, headed by Dr. Eric Grabowski. And he will be doing part 2 of geography and mapping regarding missing persons cases. So all of you premium Patreon members can look forward to that. Be looking for an email from him in your email for the link to the Zoom link, so all of you can get involved. You can be in there. You can ask questions. Eric will ask questions of you. For all of you who have been part of these former Unfound on the grounds, you know what goes on, but I'm hoping some new people, additional people will show up for the February 22nd. And of course, I just listen in. I do not take part. I just am there to kind of oversee things and see how things are going. So February 22nd for Unfound is going to be a very busy day. 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock with Dr. Telesco. And then 45 minutes later, Unfound on the ground once again for premium Patreon members, which is the $12 a month level and up. Louise says a lot of dog walkers find bodies. Could be, Louise. If it's a cold case, can the family try and find more evidence to try and find out what happened to their loved ones? PI can get the records from the police. Louise, I'm going to tell you what I'm virtually telling all of my guests now. Don't hire a private investigator. So I would rule that out. A lot of families use PIs to help them as well. I'm just not I've learned my lesson on that. Kim, do you see the update in the Kiera Coles case? I have not, Kim. Eileen says that's my birthday, February 22nd. Is that right? Well, I think tomorrow. Is it tomorrow? I think tomorrow is my niece's birthday. I think she's going to be 37. And then my brother's birthday is on Saturday, February 13th. Kathy says, yeah, Eileen, a busy Unfound day for your birthday. Delane, did you see the article I sent you about the extortion attempt in the couple of cases, the McDonald's meetings, and the trafficking angle? Delane, I don't. Maybe I did. I get a lot of emails, Delane. I'm sorry. I will have to look. If I did not reply to you, then I probably didn't. So that's what we going on there. Dr. Grace Telesco on the 22nd and Unfound now on the 22nd. I got another question that I did not write down here, but I'm going to read it right now. Valerie, are you in here, Valerie? I'm so happy to see you on videos with other podcasts and maybe stuff. It's kind of a run-on sentence here. I'm so happy to see you on videos with other podcasts and maybe stuff you don't see when they shout you out for your in-depth research. How do you choose who to work with? I'm guessing it has to be missing persons related. I wrote about this, Valerie. Maybe if you saw this, if you didn't, maybe you should get on the newsletter email. I wrote about this for the February newsletter that came out a little over a week ago. Is that I think that I'm fairly particular on who I would work with. My perception is that other hosts are much more flexible than I am. I do work with people. I work with my assistants. Emily is primarily concerned with reaching out to guests. Cherie does that as well. But as you know, Cherie, her main functions are kind of being my confidant. We talk over, how the program's going, et cetera, and what we should be doing. She, of course, moderates the live show and, of course, takes part in the think tank. I bounce a lot of ideas off of her. Dr. Eric Grabowski runs Unfound on the Ground. Natasha does everything for the website. She also posts YouTube videos and things. Carrie and Heather are responsible for the moderation of the Unfound discussion group, so it doesn't get out of hand. Also with Carrie, she has a lot of experience with working as a 911 dispatcher, et cetera, can give her opinions on that, working with law enforcement. And of course, she was very helpful regarding Jake Latiolais' disappearance. So I do work with people. I work with my assistants. Valerie, you're leaving, and I'm just answering your question right now, Valerie. Well, that's okay. Well, I guess you'll just have to catch it later. So I do work with people. This is not a one-person operation or a one-man operation. This is actually a 5 women, 2 men operation. And if it was just by myself, a lot of these things that you know about Unfound could not be happening. And if I would have to do all this myself, I don't know how I'd do it. So I do choose to work with people, and it just occurred to me what I was going to say before regarding Jill's question that I will go back to that in a second. So when it comes to working with other hosts, I want to make sure that their attitude toward all of these topics is the same as mine. And my perception is a lot of them don't have the same attitude. I'm not telling them what attitude to have. They can have any attitude that they want. It's their show, their program. They can do whatever they want, but I'm just not going to have anything to do with it. So, the list is very short. But we'll see. Hopefully it grows. Hopefully it grows. So that's how I choose. I have to work with people that I think hold the same values that I do regarding missing persons cases. And yes, it would have to be a missing person. I'm not going to work with another host on a murder or something like that, because that's just not what I do. So Valerie, but that's my answer to you. I just want to work with people who have the same attitude that I do. I think that that's the best way to handle it. That's the easiest way to handle it. I think that will make it the best for collaboration. And John Lordan certainly fits that description. Louise says unfoundpodcast@gmail.com. Yes. All right. See you, Kim. I don't know if she's still here. See you, Kim. I just am reading that now. Good night, Kim. Thank you for posting the Unfound Podcast@gmail.com. Louise says, why do you not advise on PLs helping with cases? Do you think that they take advantage of the vulnerability of the family and get money for nothing? Yes. Good night, Kim. Good night, Kim. Ouch, Kim. Good night for all of you. Okay. Kim, the police said they had video footage of her and it was put out to the public, but the police knew it was not her. Why would police say and do that? Kim, without knowing the specifics of Kiara, I really cannot, I'm not going to comment. I just don't know. If Kim, if you want to email me, as Sheree posted, unfoundpodcast@gmail.com, any information, news articles, whatever, I will surely read it. And then I would certainly put it on my agenda for next week's live show. I'm just not going to comment on it. I just don't have enough information to comment on it. I just don't know. So, Valerie, that is my answer to that. What I was going to say regarding Jill, what she had asked before, and I kind of lost my mind for a second, about Unfound gaining traction. This is what and I've said this in one of the Q&A episodes, is that for anybody that is starting any kind of podcast show on YouTube, on iTunes, Spotify, Podomatic, anything like that, anything that you are starting on your own, it doesn't even have to be true crime related. It could just be a business, a brick and mortar business. You'll know that when you're successful, when people want to work with you. And when I mean work with you is like they're not trying to sell you something. Well, I want to be in business with you and will you please sell my product? That's not what I mean. People who want to work with you and see your vision and work with you to make that vision happen. That is when you know that you have a successful program. Unfortunately, I think at least when it comes to podcasting, YouTube videos, etc., success is indicated by downloads and views and shares and everything else. That is not how I view the success of this program and whether we're doing good work or not. I judge it on people who come to me and say, Ed, do you need help with your program? I would like to help. Because people don't want to be associated with losers. They only want to be associated with winners. So that's why when it comes to my assistants, most of them came to me, and said, hey, I'd like to help you with the program. I think that they saw something with Unfound and they wanted to be affiliated with it, even though they're all volunteers. So that's how I gauge, you talk about gaining traction it doesn't happen a lot, but once in a while I do get an email. Hey, what can I do? And usually I will hand that over to Cherie. I will say, hey, this person contacted me, says they would like to help do something for Unfound. And I will give it to Cherie and say, hey, talk to this person and, see what they're about and see if they can, really become part of the team, because I trust Cherie to do that. She and I have the same vision. I trust her to give her best opinion on whoever. So, when it comes to gaining traction, that's one of the ways. And that's why I always, in advice that I've given to people, although it hasn't happened recently, but people who have contacted me, hey, I would like to start a podcast. I would like to start a true crime podcast. How do I do that? My first thing is you have to make a good show. And what's a good show? A good show is one that other people want to be involved in. It's a program that is really trying to solve problems. And you'll know the success of it, not by the downloads and everything. You'll find out when people start emailing you, contacting you and say, I think you have a fantastic show. Do you need any help with the show? I'd like to volunteer and help you with the program. Is there something you need done? Here are my skills. Here's what I've done in my life. Can you use some of these skills to move your program forward? That is a sign that you have a good program. Everything else, the downloads, the views and everything, that's just ego. It's ego. And on top of that, they can be faked. So Whereas people, when they are willing to put in their own time, even though they have their own jobs and everything, but just an hour a week, 2 hours a week, or whatever, that they're willing to give their free time to your program says something. It says, it says some very good things. So going back to your question about gaining traction, that's how I gauge Unfound, when other people want to be affiliated with the program. All right. 10:45, 10:44 Eastern time. We've been going for a while. Just want to touch upon this real quickly. Did you see about this story about this man who went into the Grand Canyon and came out alive? I'm going to just read this to you. Announced that a missing person search on Sunday and put out an appeal on Twitter saying Coleman may have been a transient traveling in an Arizona area from Maine. Officers described him as a black male, 6 feet in height and weighing 160 pounds with brown eyes and balding brown hair. And sharing a poster with a picture of Coleman, the tweet said, missing person search underway on the south rim of Grand Canyon National Park. Stephen Coleman, Portland, Maine, was last seen on December 20th, 2020. On the south rim of the Grand Canyon. I've been there. But hours later, the NPS tweeted again to announce that Coleman had been found at around noon nearby, 7 weeks after he was last seen. The service said on February 7th at approximately noon, Stephen Coleman was located outside of Grand Canyon National Park. Coleman is in safe and in good health and is no longer reported as a missing person. This just shows you how complex missing persons cases can be. It seems nobody saw this guy for 7 weeks, but it turns out that he was just fine. And of course, 7 weeks is just a little bit long, a little bit shorter than the time Jason Landry has been missing. Isn't it about right? That's about the same amount of time. So you just never know. This is what makes missing persons cases so difficult. I keep saying it. Adults are allowed to go camping for 8 weeks and not be seen anybody. They're allowed to do that. They're allowed to take their tent, little gas grill, or create their own little fires in some national park and go fishing and do whatever. And however they take water or they figure out how to provide water for themselves or whatever else, you're allowed to do that in the United States. I don't know if you can do that in North Korea, but you can do that in the United States, as you can probably do in Canada and a lot of countries where people have the freedom to do that, and you don't have to check in, and people, the government is not suspicious of you dropping off the map for a while. But for every, so you can do this. And this is why so many times police are like, I don't know what you want me to do. This makes it very, very difficult. I try to very much balance the line between being irate at police for not taking these disappearance seriously, but I also believe that people have a right to go off and do whatever they want and without telling anybody, even if their loved ones and their friends may be worried and everything else. So this Stephen Coleman story is a perfect example of that. He wasn't necessarily missing. It's just that nobody had seen him, and maybe that's the way he wanted it. He wanted to go out and walk around and camp and transient. Maybe he is a homeless person. I don't know. But he was safe and in good health. So for these 7 weeks, he was taking care of himself somehow. So it just makes it all very difficult. Let's see here. Jill says qualitative methods versus quantitative methods. It sounds like regarding how I judge if Unfound is gaining traction. I guess so, Jill. That's a good way to put it. Unfounded is in for the long haul, not a flash in the pan program. I'd like to think that I can do this for the rest of my life, Tammy. Let's hope. And I'm hoping to live a long time. Louise, if you ever do any cases from the UK about the missing, if you need any help with the information, hey, Louise, I would love to do some disappearances from the UK. Love it. If you have any families over there that are having trouble getting, media attention or anything like that, I'm always willing to talk. We'll figure out the particulars about talking to people and, over across the pond. We'll figure it out. In fact, I've made the public statement. I would love to cover the disappearance of Trevor Dealey in Dublin, Ireland. Love to do that. Just haven't made it happen yet. But Unfound is an international program. It has to have been listened to in at least 100 countries or something. So, and I know we have listeners, as you're one of them, Louise, over there in the United Kingdom. And in fact, one of the Unfound's longest time listeners is Sinead from Ireland. I haven't talked to her in a while. I hope she's doing well. But Jill, I am from Arizona. I know, but a lot of people have hiked the Grand Canyon. I have friends who used to run trails. If you have the experience and skills, you can do it, of course. So he was not missing then. They should tell somebody if they will be away for a couple of months. Well, especially if it was not in their nature to just take off. Louise, it's just so difficult. Do we really want to get to this point in our lives as adults where we have to tell people where we are all the time? I don't know if we want to get to that point. So his story was definitely different and easier to believe than Holly Courtier's on Zion. That is surely true, Cherie. Louise, people should be able to do what they want for as long as they want, go where they want. But if something bad had happened to them, it would seem bad if nobody had not missed them. Now, Jill, do you have any person that may have went missing in another country outside that couple you covered? Do you have any person that may have went missing in another country outside that couple you covered? Well, we've covered a few in Canada, Jill, and of course, Ben Padilla in Angola. But I just mentioned Trevor Dealey. That's one that comes to mind from Dublin, Ireland. He was at a Christmas party, was allegedly walking home at like 3 a.m. and just poof, gone. Yep. Thank you, Marlene. Yeah, Louise says, I don't believe Holly went missing at all. It was staged. So that was just wanted to read that example. It just shows you guys missing for 7 weeks. Something bad must have happened. Not so. All right, let's talk about this Friday's disappearance. The disappearance of Joseph Skyler Burnley. But for the purposes of the interview, we will be calling him Sky. He disappeared from Rankin County, Mississippi. The nearest town is Brandon, Mississippi, but he was technically from Florence, Mississippi. He disappeared on June 3rd, 2016. The title of the episode is The Lost Day. And his mother, Stacy Humble, will be the guest. This is an disappearance that was covered by Crime Watch Daily back in 2019. I will be linking to that on Facebook and elsewhere so that people can watch that video. They hit the general facts of Sky's disappearance, but as we do on Unfound, we get a little more in depth than they do, and that's why Stacy's interview is about 2 hours long. And I will be doing a video that will appear here on YouTube. I'm going to film that tomorrow. Do that tomorrow. Very important that I think all of you understand these locations. The general facts that are still in dispute to this day, 4.5 years later, is that Sky was over at a guy he was over at the house of a guy who had worked on his truck and fixed it. This guy's name is Travis Brewer. Travis Brewer lived there with his girlfriend, Amanda, and their child. Sky was at their house, and while he was there that night, June 2nd into June 3rd, allegedly, Travis's truck got stolen. So the next morning, when they discovered that it was stolen, instead of calling 911 or anything, Travis, Sky, Amanda, and their child decided to get in Amanda's car and go look for this truck. And they were doing so, allegedly using Sky's phone to track the truck because Travis said that his phone was in the truck when it was stolen. So they were using some sort of phone tracking app. That took them to Bridges Road in Rankin County in Mississippi. And allegedly what happened was that they got there. Amanda stayed with her child at the car. Travis went in one direction. Sky went in another direction. A little while later, Travis came back. Sky didn't come back, and he was never seen again. Now, the big issue, though, is that when the truck was found, and it was in the general area of Bridges Road, Travis's phone wasn't in the truck. It was actually found down the street from where he lived, like in the grass next to the road. So the big question is, how did they track the truck to that general area of Bridges Road when the phone was never anywhere near there? It's a little bit of a stumper. So there's also a video at a convenience store that we're going to be talking about. There was video also taken, although we will not get to see it. I have not seen it. A video taken near Bridges Road of a person who had video on the outside of his house that showed on that day, June 3rd, the car going out there on Bridges Road that allegedly had Travis, Sky, Amanda, and their child in it. I have to tell you, these disappearances that we're starting 2021 with are real tough ones. Tough. TJ Murray, Noah Davis, Jake Latiolais from last week, and now Sky Burnley this Friday. Very difficult. Very complex, conflicting stories. Multiple theories that all seem viable. I don't know how that happened. We certainly didn't plan it that way, but we are starting 2021 with some tough ones. Now, I think, although I've not done the interview next week, I think it's going to happen this weekend. Next week's, I think, will be a little more straightforward. But these ones for 2021 so far, multiple possibilities. And Sky Burnley's is one more of those. So there you go. Thank you, Marlene. Jill, like from the U.S., but was visiting somewhere else. That kind of disappearance, Jill. No, nothing that's on the radar right now. So no. Kim, I wish Unfound could end up on the Investigation Discovery without all the Hollywood fluff. Well, like I said, that's one of those things, Kim, that I was talking about earlier about you're either going to adapt to your environment. You're going to either adapt to your environment or the environment is going to adapt to you. And I'm not adapting to the environment, so the environment's going to have to adapt to us. Sheree, once I dug into it, it seemed pretty clear to me. Sheree. But you haven't heard the interview yet, Sheree. I just don't know. Of course, I'm going to have to start writing that blog on Patreon for it to come on Sunday. But I will let you know if you're a Patreon member, patreon.com/Unfound Podcast. You will get to hear my conclusion on Sky's. You will get to read it on Sunday. So there you go. It's a tough one. I don't think it's straightforward. So that's about it. It's true that I haven't. I'm looking forward to it. That's true. I haven't. Okay. All right. So what did we do tonight? Talked a lot about disc golf and playing doubles and winning some money twice yesterday and today. Cleaned out my car. Foggy last night. Talked about Paul Franchak, who coincidentally he and I worked at the same place back in 2003, 2004. The Latiolais poll, LordanArts. I remember special episode coming out this coming Monday. Robbie Hurt, Dr. Grace Telesco, Unfound Now, talked about the man who disappeared and then was found in the Grand Canyon. Took a bunch of questions from Jill, Jolene, and Valerie, along with some right here in the chat, and then finished it up as we usually do with this Friday's disappearance. The disappearance of Sky Burnley from Rankin County, Mississippi on June 3rd, 2016. That'll be Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern. That's it. That's all I got. You'll hear me on Friday. Some of you are in the think tank will see me on Sunday evening. We'll be going back to Sunday, 7 p.m. Eastern. That's all I got. I hope you enjoyed it. That's why we do it. Love talking to all of you. Good night. Well, if you have a particular case from the UK, email me, unfoundpodcast@gmail.com, Louise. Good night.